Hi there, facilitators, and welcome to the demonstration on how to actually get ready for doing your layout in your gardens. So I've prepared a couple of things, and some of these things are really essential for you to be able to have ready before you do layouts. I'm going to teach you how to do that. The first thing is you need to prepare 2 terrain ropes, and we call a terrain rope a measuring rope. You need a 60 centimeter measuring rope and a 75 centimeter measuring rope. We obviously do a lot of training and that, but you only need ropes maybe about 6 meters long. 6x6s are more than enough. We obviously use terrain ropes of all different sizes in our garden. We use the 75 centimeter terrain rope for large scale layouts, and we run 50 meter lengths of that. And we also have a 60 centimeter terrain rope which we use for planting, and we plant sweet corn and tomatoes and eggplant and even interval spaced of squashes using the 60 centimeter terrain rope on large scale. And we also have a 45 centimeter terrain rope, and this is a rope that we would use for most of the crucifera, some of the broccoli and cauliflower and cabbages and also peppers. So all 3 of these ropes are regularly used in our farming gods or implementation, but for your layout you really need to have these 2 to start. So it's a 60 centimeter rope around about 6 meters long, and a 75 centimeter interval rope also around about the same sort of length. So let's go through the process of how to actually make this rope, and I'll walk you through the journey as we go. So you need a hammer and a few pegs. So firstly, just hammer in a peg on one side of a flat portion of ground, and then hook on your rope onto that line. Preferably you want a rope that's non-stretch, a rope that can't be broken very easily, and then run it all the way to the other side and hammer in that peg on the other side. Okay, so for the 75 centimeter terrain rope, cut yourself a 75 centimeter long stick, just like that. And you can place that stick on the edge of your mark, on the outside edge of the loop. And the best mechanism to be able to do the markers on your rope is actually copper wire. This is like, really, there's nothing quite like it to be able to make terrain ropes, and you can easily get these lengths of copper wire. And all that you would do is take your wire like that, align it on the mark of the 75 centimeter interval, and then take that, hold that in your fingers and wrap it tightly onto the rope, and that creates a really immovable marker on that rope. And you're going to repeat this process all the way down the line, making sure that you've got a very good interval rope, and it's never going to move. So you can take a pair of pliers and crimp that on, but you can very clearly see an accurate mark. And next thing, you would move this stick down with the rope nice and taut, by the way, to the next marker, and you would repeat the same process again. So line up the rope with the edge, wrap it on nice and tight, try to get the copper wire to merge so it's a clear mark. And take your pliers and crimp that mark in its position. So you just carry on, literally moving down your terrain rope, moving it from one peg to the next, just like that. There's another way that you can really do this very effectively, and that is by using plastic. Now, plastic, as we know, is a South African national flower, and we can use this very effectively to be able to mark our ropes. And so you can use some of that twine that we talked about, cut them into these sort of 20 centimeter lengths. You don't need a thick full amount of that twine, but you do exactly the same as we've done here, but there's a different step in this process when using plastic. Now watch carefully. So we place it in its position, we make a mark with our finger where that outside edge of that terrain rope will be. Then I'll ask Robert to slacken off the rope. Okay, so once he's slackened it off, it gives me the opportunity to be able to open up that rope. Once I've got the rope open, I can then feed the plastic inside the rope. And then just leave it just like that. Don't knot it off. Pull it tight again, please, Robert. So once I go through, I'll then go and carry on measuring all the way down on the right tension. Again, just slacken off the rope. Thank you, Robert. And then feed the plastic inside the rope, going all the way down that line. Okay? And carry on moving as I go. So once I've tensioned it and I've put these pieces of plastic where I feel that they should be, I'd maybe want to just check my tension when I finish that rope. So Robert, can you just pull that rope just to the right tension? It feels a little bit slack to me. You can tension it up some more, pull it a bit tighter. Okay, and so he's got the right tension. So with plastic, it's really important then to come and verify that those positions are correct. Now remember, we haven't tightened or knotted up those pieces of plastic. So then I'll come and I'll just check where that knot is. And you can see in this example, I should move this plastic just a little bit further back so I can slide it inside of itself, get it to the right position, and then wrap it over itself, and then knot it in position. 2 half knots, 2 half hitches, nice and tight, and then take your pliers and trim it off at the exact sort of about a 1 centimeter length remaining, and you end up with a really nice little neat mark just like that, which will be very effective for you to be able to see inside the field. And then you do the same at your next interval, double checking. You can see here how far that, with a little bit of stretch in the rope, how far out that plastic is. So we move down, we move the thing and we let it go, we move the plastic down, we let it go, move it down to the right position, let it go, double checking that we've got the right spacing, and again take that plastic, wrap it over itself and tie it off and trim it short. Okay, again, perfect little tearing rope mark, can't slide on that rope, and it's there forever, just like that. So that's how you'd go through and make your own tearing ropes for utilization on a slightly larger field. Again, the tearing rope sizes are 75 centimeter intervals for your downslope measurement of your rows, 60 centimeters for many of the planting station crops, and your 45 centimeters for a few of the remaining of the planting station crops. Once you've made a really good rope, you've got it for the rest of your life. So in this case, for field scale layout, guys, you're going to need the 2 ropes. You need a 75, very important, and you need a 60 centimeter tearing rope to be able to have the inside lines. So let's go through now and work out how to actually lay out the garden and how to actually coach people to lay out gardens effectively. Okay, so let's go through the process of how to actually coach the layout, and then I'm going to give you some little secrets about how to actually encourage your community to do layout more effectively. So the things that you need are your 60 centimeter tearing rope, which is going to run across the slope. You can actually use a blank rope for this with vegetables, because many of our vegetables are planted without interval. But you have to have the 75 centimeter downslope rope in position. So that's very, very important. You also need a book to be able to establish your perfect square, a hammer, and your 20 pegs, or as many pegs as you need based on how many rows you've got designed in your garden. So let's go ahead and do the implementation here. The very first thing we're going to do is come to the top side of our field. You can notice here that the slope runs down the slope. So down in this direction, we come to the top side of our garden. And along this top side, there's a straight edge here that is what we call on the contour. This is very, very important to get right. We establish our baseline on the top slope across that slope. So it's not down the slope, the baseline always goes across the slope on the contour. So we'll hammer in corner peg number 1. Then take your baseline rope all the way across the slope, pulling it nice and straight and tight, and securing it at corner peg number 2. Lift and drop it so it's nice and straight. Next, use your book to be able to establish the perfect square. Using it on the baseline, place the bottom edge of the book on the baseline. Then hook on your downslope rope with 75 centimeter markers onto it, onto corner peg number 2. And get a helper to work with you. Pull it nice and tight, Robert. Okay, go across this direction. Okay, you've gone too far. Come back. Okay, that is spot on. So you can see we've lined it up, squared it off nice and neatly with our book, and this allows us to be able to get the permanence that we're after in over a long period of time. Go ahead then and place permanent pegs on every one of the 75 centimeter markers on the left hand side of your garden all the way down the slope. Okay, a very common problem with a lot of people's implementation of the layout is at this stage. They go and they make a silly mistake by taking this downslope rope and then taking it down to that bottom corner. That's not how you operate. How it works is everything on the top side will go to the bottom. So Robert, if you wouldn't mind going to corner number 1, pick up the whole rope that goes across the slope, lift it up, go down the slope. And the loop that was on corner peg number 2 comes onto corner peg number 3. Then, if you wouldn't mind taking that piece, Robert, the rope side that was on the right hand flank is now going to move to the left hand flank. And you attach the loop that was on corner peg number 2 onto corner peg number 1. Now, this is a critical step in this process when you actually overlap these 2 loops by putting a peg between those 2 loops. Pull the rope nice and tight, and that will establish a perfect square. This is corner peg number 4. We'll then go again and we'll place permanent pegs on every single one of the 75 marks all the way up on this left hand side flank. And that is basically how you would wrap up the whole process of the layout. So there's a couple of things that I see a lot of people doing in error. The first is they never establish the baseline on the contour. So make sure that is where you start. Corner peg number 1, corner peg number 2, always across the slope on the baseline. Then always use corner number 2 as the establishing point to run down the slope using the book. Another thing I see a lot of people doing in error is they put the book down on the baseline and then they sit on the inside of the square trying to figure out where to look, and that doesn't help at all. I really want to encourage you to be able to stand or be kneeling on the outside of that corner peg number 2, looking down the slope. So once you establish your book in the right position, you can get that square to run evenly off your book line. Another common problem is people will put the book down on the baseline and then adjust the book to be able to fit in with the downslope rope. Very common mistake. So we don't want to do that. Once you've established the square on the bottom of the baseline, don't adjust the book. The book will never move. You only will adjust the rope from left to right until it sits exactly in that line of your downslope edge. One other great error that we see commonly done in these gardens is that when you do layout exercise, is this rope moving from the left to the bottom and the rope that was on the top moving from the top to the left hand side. That will establish a trapezium, so you really don't want to do that. Very simple process. Top to bottom and right to left. If you do that, you're not going to mix up your establishment of your permanence. So this permanence, guys, is absolutely fundamental to the success of farming God's way. We want to make sure that we are always going to be planting in the same area. We're going to be feeding that same soil over progressive long periods of time. We're going to be improving the soil pHs, the soil fertility, the soil organic matter. percolation ability, the amount of capillaries in a root zone over long protracted time periods. So it's very important that everybody gets this principle of the 75 layout on larger scale gardens done to excellence from the very beginning. You don't build a house and then change the foundations later. No, you set the foundations and you build walls and roofs based on that foundation, and that is really what we have here going on with permanence. It's like Jesus, he's our age-old foundation. We want to establish everything according to his principles and his character and his nature. It's a little bit like this permanence. He's rock solid. He never moves. He doesn't change his ways. He's the same yesterday, today, and forever. And the same with our permanent pegs. They are here yesterday, today, and forever. And we are going to build on the principles of permanence, which allow our crops to be able to flourish for many, many years to come. So much encouragement for you as you do the layout exercises with your communities. So we've done this layout here for you as facilitators. I would encourage that you then, once you finish doing that, then you simply, Robert, would you help me here? We're just going to take up all the pegs and simply pull them out the ground. And you're saying, hey, but that's supposed to be a permanent garden. No, this is a practice garden. This is a place where we are going to encourage people to learn. And once all the pegs have been taken up, even mix up the ropes so that people will not be sure which rope to use on which side. And then you ask them to choose 2 people to help make a leader, and ask people to have 2 dummies. And each of those, that group of 3, then have to lay out the garden, and I actually give them a time limit. You've got 5 minutes to prepare the layout of this whole garden. The record, and I hope somebody's going to beat it one day, is 2 minutes and 17 seconds to do a layout like this. So most people don't get under 5 minutes when they're first learning, but usually after the 3rd try of people having laid it out, we take all pegs up again, lay it out, take all the pegs up again. After the 3rd try, most people start to get it in around about 4.5 to 5 minutes. So it can be done. I would encourage you to do this, lay it out for the community, teach them how to do it, then take everything up and get them to do it. People learn by doing. You can't teach what you haven't done, so you yourself as a facilitator, make sure that you practice doing this layout and you get it really good, but also make sure that your community get used to doing it and give them the opportunity. Do 3 or 5 opportunities for this layout to take place. We've actually got 3 sets of the layout kits, and we run it in 3 different groups using our facilitators at our training modules to make sure everybody gets an opportunity to have hands-on experience. You learn by doing. So once you've completed your layout exercises with the community, you give them the opportunity to do those drills. It's often very important time to be able to get them to make their own terrain ropes so that they can implement farming God's way in their own gardens at a slightly larger scale. So encourage them before the training to bring some of their own ropes, whatever material they've got accessible to them. I've made over 34 terrain ropes in one afternoon in an hour using our master line as an example. And I'm going to teach you how to do that right now. Just get a couple of nails and push them in on either flank of your master line, and make sure they're well seated on either side. And we'll just use 2 as an example for you to be able to see. Just put those nails on either side of your white peg, then bring in the community's terrain ropes, which are obviously unmarked at this stage, and they can all hook their loops on next to your master line. And then run those terrain ropes of theirs right next door to yours, and then use a hammer and nails on the other side to secure their terrain ropes. Once you've done that, you can then go back and then see the alignment of these terrain ropes must be in accordance with your master line. So if you look at this particular rope here, it's got nothing on it. We would then line up that master line on the black there, and I'll place the copper wire windings in position, and I'll begin to wrap going forward nice and tight to ensure that we get accurate placement of that, comparing it all the time and then trimming it short. And then move it down the line again, observing where the mark is on the terrain rope, and correspondingly on your rope begin to wrap your copper wire windings onto that. If you don't have the copper wire windings, you remember We can use plastic very effectively. You just got to remember to place your fingers in the correct position. Then loosen the rope, open the rope, feed the plastic in loosely, let half of it stay in position. Once all the halves are in position, connect it up nice and tight, and then compare those pieces of plastic to that mark. So again, see there's the master line. We know exactly where it should be. Open up the rope, feed the plastic through, just leave it in position. Go to your next marker, open it up, feed the plastic through. Once the tension has been replaced, we're then going to check the position, slide it into the exact position that it needs to be in, wind it on nice and tight, and then tie it off. So if you look closely here, you'll be able to see a nice alignment off our master of all these plastic marks on the turn rope, and just remember to trim them nice and short. So this is a great opportunity for you to be able to equip the poor to be able to be more effective on a larger scale. So doing the field layouts and doing the turn rope making can really serve them as you serve the Lord Jesus. Amen.